So, I recently dealt with something I never thought I'd say out loud. My timberland got raided by a tactical team. And the reason? A historical preservation dispute. They showed up in body armor with rifles and a warrant that looked official, except every seal on it was a forgery. Funny thing is, they thought they were the ones setting the trap. Turns out they walked straight into mine. Let me start from the beginning. Before we dive in, let me know where you're listening from today. Drop your city or state in the comments. And here's a question for you. Have you ever had someone try to take what you earned? Not with a weapon, but with a clipboard and a smile? Let me know below. You ever chase a dream so long that by the time you finally catch it, you're afraid to close your eyes? That was me sitting on a deck I milled from my own cedar, sipping black coffee, looking out at 80 acres of deep woods I paid for in blood, sweat, and overseas pay. No commanding officers, no 0400 wake-up calls, no strangers screaming orders, just me, my German Shepherd Duke, a rusty pickup truck, and the wind in the pines. It was the kind of silence that doesn't just make things quiet, it makes your soul settle. I thought I was done with war. I thought I was done with conflict. I thought wrong. It started with a marker, a bright orange stake driven into the ground right next to my mailbox. Attached to it was a laminated card, Protected Heritage Zone, Site under Cultural Review. I stood there blinking at it. I own this land. There isn't a historical building for 20 miles. So I pulled the stake out, snapped it over my knee, and tossed it in the burn pile. I chalked it up to some overzealous city surveyor lost in the woods. That was mistake number one, underestimating the arrogance of people who think history gives them the right to your future. Mistake number two was assuming Eleanor Vance would stop. She showed up the next day, a black sedan, government plates that looked a little too shiny, parked blocking my gate. Out stepped a woman in a tweed blazer, riding boots, and wire-rimmed glasses. She held a tablet like it was a holy book. She didn't look at the trees. She looked at the land like it was a map she wanted to redraw. "Good morning," she said, voice crisp as autumn air. "I assume you're Mr. Reader." I leaned on my gate. "Help you?" "I'm Eleanor Vance, Director of the Regional Heritage Preservation Trust. I'm here to formally welcome you to the Conservation District." I squinted. "This is private timberland, lady. The only thing we conserve out here is ammunition." She smiled, a thin, practice thing. "Actually, the Trust has designated this valley as a site of significant cultural interest. Our charter allows us to monitor land usage, restrict excavation, and enforce aesthetic integrity to match the 19th century character of the region." I laughed. "You want me to maintain 19th century character? Does that mean I can handle trespassers the way they did in the 1800s? She didn't flinch. "We regulate outbuilding colors, vehicle storage, timber harvesting, and fencing materials. We're in an observation phase, but penalties for heritage degradation begin on the 1st of the month." She handed me a thick binder labeled Stewardship Mandate. "Lady," I said, "I don't have a steward. I have a deed." "We don't seize the land, Mr. Reader," she said softly. "Just the rights to manage it." She spun around and walked back to her car like she'd just educated a child. I opened the binder right there. Fake statutes, blurry maps of my property, photos of my truck marked visual anachronism. Apparently, my propane tank was historically incoherent. I didn't throw it out. I used it to start my wood stove. 2 days later, the signs came back. Metal this time, bolted to my trees. Restricted access. Heritage Enforcement Zone. I tore them down with a crowbar. This time, they sent the Rangers. 2 guys, mid-40s, tactical pants, vests with patches that read, "Heritage Security." I watched from the tree line as they walked my perimeter with GPS units, marking waypoints. I stepped out of the woods. "Can I help you boys find the highway?" One jumped. The other puffed out his chest. "We're conducting an archaeological impact survey." Got a warrant? We operate under the Preservation Trust Charter. Great. You're trespassing under the Reader Charter. Get out! They left, but one dropped a map. My property was circled in red ink, labeled Sector 4 Hostile High Value. I took a picture and sent it to an old buddy, Sheriff Miller. He hadn't heard of the Heritage Trust, but he knew Eleanor Vance. Yeah, he said. She tried to shut down the county fair last year because the funnel cake stand wasn't period accurate. She's a nuisance. But I knew this wasn't just a nuisance. You don't put men in tactical vests to protect old pottery. Eleanor had plans. I started prepping. Not for a lawsuit, but for a breach. Motion sensors, infrared trail cams, tripwires connected to floodlights. Nothing lethal, just enough to remind them that this forest has eyes. And the next time they came, they didn't knock. They came at 0300 hours, under the cover of a storm. You don't forget the sound of a tactical approach. It's not the noise they make. It's the silence they try to force. The rhythm was distinct. Boots on wet leaves, pausing every 4 steps. I was already awake. Muscle memory. I sat in the dark kitchen, mug in hand, listening. Crunch. Pause. Crunch. I moved to the window. 4 shadows moving toward the barn. Night vision goggles. Suppressed rifles, or what looked like them, and zip-tie handcuffs on their belts. One guy had a tablet glowing against his chest. I crouched low. Team Bravo in position. A voice crackled over a radio frequency I was scanning. Secure the perimeter. Asset is non-compliant. Initiate seizure under Article 9. Seizure. They weren't here to find me. They were here to take the land. That old hum came back. The one I hadn't felt since the sandbox. The cold calm, the slowed heart rate. I slipped on my jacket with the remote trigger in the pocket. They crossed the inner perimeter. Confident, arrogant, click, boom. Not an explosive, a sonic cannon. 120 decibels of oscillating siren noise ripped through the clearing. At the same moment, 50,000 lumens of LED floodlights blinded them from the barn roof. They scrambled. One guy tripped over a root. Another guy dove behind my woodpile, right where Duke was waiting. Duke didn't bite, but he let out a bark that sounded like a tectonic plate shifting. The guy froze, terrified. I stepped out onto the porch, sipping my coffee. Good morning, gentlemen. You boys look lost, or are you just looking for arrowheads in the dark? One of them stood up. The leader. We are executing an emergency preservation order to secure threatened historical assets. Emergency order? I yelled over the siren, clicking it off. Did you print that off a blog? We are empowered to protect the integrity of this district, he shouted, hand hovering near his belt. You are damaging the timeline. I'm about to damage your ego, I said. You're on private property, armed, terrorizing a citizen. We are heritage enforcement, he screamed. Suddenly, red and blue lights washed over the trees. Sheriff Miller. He didn't come slow. He came in hot, tires spinning on the gravel. Miller stepped out, shotgun racked. Drop the gear now! The heritage team froze. We have jurisdiction, the leader yelled. Miller walked up and ripped the patch off the guy's vest. Buddy, this says volunteer ranger. You're lucky I don't book you for impersonating a human being. We found their vehicle down the road. Inside was a laptop, maps, surveillance photos of me sleeping on my porch, financial records of my mortgage, and a list. My name highlighted in red. Obstructionist. Phase 1 target. Miller arrested them all. Trespassing, stalking, brandishing weapons. But here's the kicker. In the back of the binder, Miller found a document. Project Archive, Rural Compliance Beta Test. It wasn't about history. It wasn't about preservation. Eleanor Vance wasn't just a busybody. She was a handler. Later that night, I decrypted a drive we found in their van. It laid it all out. Project Archive. A government-funded psychological operation, testing how to use cultural heritage and environmental preservation to seize rural land without eminent domain. Use fake history. Use shame. Use social isolation. If that fails, use force disguised as security. My farm was Site Zero. They were profiling me, testing my breaking point. Subject reader. High resistance, combat veteran, tactical capabilities. Ideal stress test. They didn't want the land for a museum. They wanted to see if they could make me give it up. Voluntarily through psychological pressure. I didn't sue Eleanor. I went nuclear. I uploaded every file, every map, every preservation mandate to the public web. I sent it to every vet group and property rights blog in the country. Within 24 hours, the Heritage Trust was swarmed by reporters. Eleanor Vance was indicted on federal conspiracy charges. The Rangers rolled on her to cut a deal. It's quiet now. Duke is asleep on the porch. The signs are gone. But last week I got an encrypted email. No subject line. Just coordinates. Not for my land. For a spot in the Midwest. And a short message. Phase 1 failed. Moving to Phase 2. Pilot Zone Agriculture. They didn't stop. They just moved targets. So if you see a guy with a clipboard standing at the edge of your property telling you that your barn doesn't match the historical character of the neighborhood, don't argue. Lock the gate.